Hello, my name is Paul K. Chappelle. I am the Executive Director for the Peace Literacy Institute. And today we'll be talking about healthy belonging and how to build healthy and strong belonging between people at any level in friendships, relationships, in schools, and workplaces, and neighborhoods, also at the national level and also at the international level. So when I was in the Army, I was able to see how the Army understands how humans bond with each other. And the Army, as a culture and as an organization, it understands how to build camaraderie between people and also how to build strong communities among people. And this is something that Gandhi also realized. Gandhi was in the British Army, he was a sergeant major. And Gandhi understood that effective militaries, they understand very important things about the human condition that we can all learn from. And you see these insights about the human condition emerge in ancient Greece, in ancient China, in ancient India, from military thinkers and from stories about soldiers and warriors. And one of the really important insights about the human condition that effective militaries understand is how to build strong communities among people. And militaries, for the most part, use that for the purpose of waging war. But Gandhi understood that we could also use that insight for the purpose of waging peace and creating a more peaceful and just world. So I was able to discern these 7 different ingredients that lead to healthy belonging, strong communities, human bonding when I was in the Army, and I'm going to share these 7 ingredients here. So we're going to use a metaphor of the 7 deep roots of healthy belonging to talk about these 7 ingredients that allow humans to bond and also build camaraderie, strong community, and also healthy belonging. So the first ingredient, the first deep root we're going to talk about is shared trust. Shared trust creates a sense of bonding, camaraderie, community among people, a sense of belonging. And trust is a wonderful feeling. I trust you, you trust me. Shared trust is a very wonderful feeling. People crave that. And it can be very traumatic to not have trust or to be betrayed. And shared trust can exist at varying depths. There can be very shallow shared trust or very deep shared trust. Deep shared trust occurs when we can feel vulnerable around people and not feel humiliated. And shared trust at that very deep level is quite rare in our society, in many societies, because people, for the most part, are not taught the skills for building shared trust. And a lot of what people learn from their parents or from their caretakers or from their society undermines shared trust. Now, you can have every other ingredient on this list, every other deep root. But if shared trust gets ruptured and goes away and doesn't come back, a 50-year relationship can end. It can tear apart a community if shared trust goes away. The next deep root we're going to talk about is shared empathy. Shared empathy builds a sense of bonding and camaraderie, a sense of community, a sense of belonging. And again, shared empathy can exist at varying depths. You can have very shallow shared empathy, very deep shared empathy. And most people are not taught the skills for cultivating very deep shared empathy. And much of what people learn, again, from their parents, caretakers, and from their society can undermine the development of deep shared empathy. So think of shared trust and shared empathy and these other roots. Think of them as roots beneath a plant or a tree. And if you have a tree and you have very deep roots, then when there is a storm or a flood, that tree will much more likely stay standing. So think of that tree as a community, as a relationship. And when a relationship or a community is confronted with struggle, with adversity, a storm, a flood, a crisis, if that relationship community has very deep roots of shared trust, very deep roots of shared empathy, that tree, that relationship, that community will much more likely stay standing. But if the roots are very shallow, if you have very shallow shared trust and very shallow shared empathy, or no shared trust or no shared empathy, that relationship, that community will very likely fall over and collapse in the midst of storm, flood, struggle, adversity, crisis. The next deep root we're going to talk about is shared participation. This also creates a sense of bonding and community and camaraderie. And shared participation can involve divisions of labor. But there are many ways to build shared participation, very deep shared participation among people. And that's something that we talk about further in peace literacy. The next deep root we're going to talk about is shared purpose, ideals, or vision. Having a shared purpose, shared ideals, or shared vision, it creates a sense of bonding and community and camaraderie. And you can have very, very deep shared purpose, very, very deep shared ideals and shared vision. And a lot of people when they are in relationships or when they're in communities, they haven't even really thought through or defined what their shared purpose is or what their shared ideals are or what their shared vision is. They don't have the skills, or they weren't taught the skills rather, to really identify those things and to also cultivate them to their highest potential. And again, you can have very deep shared trust, very deep shared empathy, deep shared participation. But if you don't have a shared purpose, if your purposes don't match, or if your purposes conflict, that can also tear apart a community, that can also end a 50-year relationship. The next deep root is shared experiences. And this requires putting in the time to develop shared experiences. And as people spend time, develop shared experiences, this again creates a sense of bonding and camaraderie and community and healthy belonging, and having the skills so that when we have shared experiences, that we are using that to further our sense of belonging and our sense of strong community. The next deep root we'll talk about is shared history. Now, shared history is different from shared experiences because shared history can predate shared experiences. An example of this is two people in the Marine Corps, and they never met before, but they both, for the first time when they meet, they both identify with Marine Corps history, and they feel an instant connection, an instant bond. Or two people in Alcoholics Anonymous, they never met before, but they both have a history of addiction struggle, and they feel an instant bond, an instant connection, an instant sense of camaraderie because of their shared history. Or two veterans who they meet for the first time, they have a sense of shared history from their military service, and they feel an instant bond, instant connection, instant sense of camaraderie. Or two people from the same country, or two people who like the same sports team. They never met, but they feel an instant connection because they have a shared history around their favorite sports team. The next one is shared struggle. Now, shared struggle is very interesting because the military actually integrates struggle into its training to get people to bond with each other. And when people have great struggle, they will either come together or they will be driven apart. And peace literacy offers skills so that when we have struggle, great struggle, we can come together rather than being driven apart from each other. Now, think of these 7 deep roots, again, beneath a tree. The tree is a community. The tree is a relationship, but the tree can also be a nation or the global community. And think of these 7 deep roots as a diagnostic tool. You need these roots. If you want to have strong belonging and healthy belonging and a very strong relationship or community at any level, you need these deep roots to make that relationship, that community strong. And thinking of this as a diagnostic tool, you can also apply this, as I just mentioned, at the national level. So if you think about the United States and you apply this diagnostic tool, this framework to the US right now, how is the US doing in these 7 areas? We're not doing very well. Every day, shared trust is being undermined. Shared empathy is being undermined. Our sense of shared participation being undermined, right? Our sense of shared purpose, ideals, or vision. Even shared history. When you want to divide and conquer people, you want their sense of shared history to be as narrow as possible. The broader people's sense of shared history is, the harder it is to divide and conquer people. And right now in the US, we're having a lot of struggle, but we tend to be coming apart rather than being driven closer together because we haven't been taught the skills for how to cultivate any of this. So to offer some hope here, we should not be surprised by how things are in the US or anywhere in the world, because we don't teach people how to build shared trust for the most part, or how to build shared empathy, or how to deepen any of these roots. We don't teach people for the most part how to do any of that. And a lot of what people learn undermines the cultivation of these roots. And there are people in societies who are actively trying to undermine shared trust and undermine shared empathy. There are people who are messaging and doing work to actively undermine these ingredients, these roots in societies. And it is so important that we develop this, not just in the US, because first of all, you cannot have a democratic system function without these roots. If you don't have shared trust and shared empathy between citizens, a democratic society cannot function, let alone be healthy. But also, if you think about the international level, how can you solve any international problem between nations if there is no shared trust between nations, no shared empathy between nations, no sense of shared participation between nations, or shared purpose, ideals, or vision between nations? Shared experiences, history, and struggle, this can also add to building a strong community also among nations. So going back to the premise of peace literacy, we don't teach people how to do this. And we teach people the opposite. So we should not be surprised by the problems in our world. And think about how different the US or any country or the world could be, or communities, or workplaces, or schools. Think about how different those things could be if we taught people how to cultivate shared trust, shared empathy, all of these deep roots through peace literacy skills, peace literacy capacities, and also greater understanding. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk more about how we can do that in more videos in this series.